my parents came up the other weekend, because they live in the basement. He goes, "I'm only joking. I don't know who they are." Um, Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Audiophiles. My name's Johnny's name's Andy. Don't need no skin tights in my wardrobe today. Fold them all up and put them all away. Won't be no misfit in my household today. Pick them all out and send them on their way. More on that later. But first, we have tracks to listen to selected by Brother Andy. What do you got in store for us all today, Andy?
I would like you to check out a band called Basement. Do you have any familiarity with the band Basement at all?
I do.
Okay.
I went to school with all of them. No. No, I do know the name for some reason. Yeah, and I've got an idea about them. That they're British and they're of a certain period of time. There's also a band called Basement 5, which do really interesting, weird punk reggae stuff.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so just be careful what you wish for.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not turned off by the prospect of listening to some Basement 5, so by all means, have your way. But yeah,
But I definitely don't. I've got an idea about them, but I couldn't tell you any of their songs or anything. So
okay. Well, that's good then. I was concerned that you may have heard this before when you had come out of the gate saying you were familiar with them. But the track that I want you to check out today is called Breathe. So, Basement, Breathe. You have a vague familiarity with them. Let's solidify that a little bit more by going off and giving this a go. And then you can come back and let us all know what your thoughts are.
okay, really interesting start. You got stick taps. It sounds like a pensioner knocking at the door. And then in comes the bass and guitar on this channel, and then we get a secondary guitar in this channel, and the drums percussion on both. Yeah, it's a nice sound to it. It does sound, particularly when that second guitar came in on the left channel, it sounded like a song by The Cure, but played at the wrong tempo, like Mr. Peel was often apt to do. I wonder, some little experiment here. Came in after, we'll go back in a second, but I think. That sounds like Robert Smith. Right. Yeah, how strange. How strange. Oh man, it sounds so slow now.
Like it was yesterday. Make me believe that you're the same. Speak. Tell me that you're okay. I'll keep biting on my
Interesting. So your man's coming in saying, I'm sorry, scribbling notes. I kind of half expected it to be a sort of an American drawl to his voice, but there isn't one. It's kind of neutral. You wouldn't say that's definitively British sounding. It's really sort of neutral. Smile like it was yesterday. Yeah, so that sort of sounds like it does sound like this is a setup for a relational situation. And he's singing the way, sounds very pleasant. And then we get to it sort of changes up the guitar a little bit. I'm looking at your face as if we never made mistakes. And the guitar's going there and the drums going, and it just changes tempo as well. Loads of splashes from the cymbals as well to ramp it up. Yeah, interesting. It's just back a little bit.
As if we never made mistakes.
I just thought that just occurred to me that tempo we're at now is kind of where I was pissing around with earlier. Yeah, interesting.
Second everything. Become a person that I hate. I'm looking at your face. As if we never ever made mistakes.
So we just you can tell there's a step up this song's building. Is it this classic sort of say like emo structure where you start off disgruntled and sluggish, and then your ire rises, as does your passion and energy. And it sounds like that 'cause his voice is definitely going up in pitch, but also gaining energy, momentum, and passion there. And he repeated those lines. I'm looking at your face. If we never made mistakes, but it's a much different feel to it with this different tempo and with his different energy. The first one sounded a bit more sort of almost sort of I don't know, disconsolate, but definitely like fatigue or something in there. And this one is a bit more sort of passionate and slightly angry. Yeah, interesting. Back to the pensioner pace. Getting splashy again.
I am
I really enjoyed that last minute or so. So I kind of, as expected, it dropped down to move back to that sort of pensioner beat, and you've got to break it down to build it up. But there was a really nice, simple sort of one note motif from the guitar on this side. And it's kind of Joey Santiago does that sometimes, or did that sometimes with the Pixies, and then before he'd go off on one. And that was quite pleasing. And obviously, then those are splashes, the drummer sort of building the scaffolding to raise it up. And then he comes back in with his voice sort of rasping, about to break, um, hitting the crescent of the emotional wave of the song. And then it sort of he leaves and it sort of rides out the momentum for like around a minute or so to the end of the song. And it was really nice because this side, that one note motif changed into a different motif that was kind of, was it two notes or four around there, but it was just quite simple but going nice. And then this side, the guitar kind of aped it in a way. It wasn't exactly mimicking it, but it was similar. And then this one started to then really lose it and like was coloring outside the lines just a bit, but it just had a effect of like, um, cutting loose. Yeah, it's really nice. And then of course it always does it, it sort of burns itself out and crashes down gently into a fade and the elements disappear. And then we're left with just a bit of noise from the PA system or whatever. Yeah, really decent song overall. I enjoyed it. I wouldn't say it's like wow amazing, but yeah, really good. I can see how this would be cathartic to a lot of people in that sort of post grunge emo-y way. Had a pleasant sound to it. Yeah, decent. I do, as I said, I've heard of Basement, but I don't remember hearing any songs. I don't remember hearing this song. I just know the name from somewhere. Um, but yeah, we need to find out some more. So let's go back and let's chop it up with Andy.
So you're back from the basement. What did you make of Breathe?
This reminds me of a joke. It was this guy who does one-liners, and he did this joke, and he goes, "Oh, my parents came up the other weekend, because they live in the basement." And he goes, "I'm only joking. I don't know who they are." Anyway, so we start with some sluggish stick smacking from the drummer before we, I wouldn't say launch, more like crawl into the song. Straight away, the sound is interesting for two reasons. One is the demarcation of the instruments. So you've got this first guitar, which initially I think is in the right channel, and then you get the bass in the left channel, and then the second guitar joins the left, and the drummer straddles both channels like a tard that he is. The second reason is from the lackadaisical approach to this song. It does resemble a kind of early mid-period atmospheric ballad by The Cure, but one that's been played on the air by a certain Mr. John Peel, who was famous for playing many songs at the wrong speed. This feels like a 45 going at 33. I actually went back in the reaction and just sped it up a little bit. And so you get the sort of, it doesn't really matter with the drum beats and all that, but when the second guitar comes in on the left channel, it really sounds like Robert Smith. And if you speed it up to 1.5 times the speed, it really sounds like Robert Smith. It's, uncanny. I mean, obviously went, and then when I switched it back down to the normal speed, it sounded really slow. But yeah, so yeah, the left channel, the guitar comes in, very sort of Robert Smith, as I said, and it sort of the one that Robert Smith does that often accompanies the vocal melody is that sort of sound, and as if by magic, the singer appears, just as he would do in a Cure song. So he says, "Smile like yesterday, make me believe you're the same." I could really catch these lyrics really well, actually, to be fair. Speak that you're okay, I'll keep biting my tongue. Singing was one of those neutral voices. At first, I really expected, despite knowing that thinking they're a British band, but I really expected like an American drawl to the vocals
Yeah.
because it kind of was set up that way. But to be fair, he doesn't sound definitively British either. He's really quite neutral in his voice. So yeah, and then he sings, "I am looking at your face as if we never made mistakes." Um, as he's singing these two lines, the drummer chimes in, and he really starts to put in work on the cymbals with more splashes in the Sea World, and the left channel guitar sort of climbs up the scales a bit. And as he does, we get a little mini drum fill, which leads into a tempo change as the beat increases. It's feeling at this stage quite post grungy, and it's, if you want to sort of talk about classifications. So we get another couple of lines, and I'm sure I catch the titular word "breathe" in there, but he's singing in a style which I have no problems with, but it's that we talked about it before, very protracted vowels, which kind of lead to atmosphere and sort of emotional quotient, but it does sometimes make it more difficult to pick them out on first listen. But then he does say, "I'm looking at your face as if we never made mistakes." No, he'd said that before, but this time these two lines are repeated with the new tempo. And it's interesting because it changes the feel of it, even though it's exactly the same two lines. So the first iteration seemed to hold, and this may be looking back on it, but it seemed to hold also a level of disappointment and like fatigue. Whereas here, with the quicker pace, and he has a lot more energy, in his delivery as well, it feels more volatile as his voice rises in both pitch and volume. And I'm guessing at this point, it's going to be this classic emo framework of quite sulky, disgruntled, moving towards enraged and passionate, which is your sort of where emo thing comes from, the emotional roller coaster. So the next verse is again full of these elongated words, and I catch something about "would I die" and "if you cared," which is much as I would expect him to say something along those lines. And the guitars crash with the percussion throughout. There's a couple more like mini fills from the drum which are really nice, and then it all breaks back to the very slow, weary sort of thumps from the drum. So that initial tempo we're back to again. The right hand channel moves up stage, and then starts to noodle around a single note that it repeats. And it's something that actually Joey Santiago, the Pixies, would do as well. He'd pick a note and just repeat it, and then start to sort of play off it like it was the root or whatever of his. And it's just really, and I like the actual repetition as well. There's something pleasing about it. And as he's doing this, the drummer starts laying down all the scaffolding for the final push. It's like he's building it with drum strokes. And up it comes. The drum hits increase, as do the cymbal hits and the splashes, and it all sort of reaches a crescendo, the singer coming back in. And of course, with this delivery, he's giving it the full oomph. So the old vocal cords are rasping away. And he sings something about "if I close my eyes." And I struggled after that. But I really liked how, at this point, the single note motif morphs into this sort of mini riff, which I don't know, I couldn't tell if it's just two notes or four notes, but it's very, it's kind of the two main notes. It's sort of like an altercation between the two. And it lifts above the general hubbub of the rest of the noise of the track. And then the left channel kind of apes it. It's not copying it precisely, but it's really similar. So they're going together. And then this kind of is holding everything in place, and it allows the original one of the right channel to start to lose it slightly, so that you get almost like a breaking down, is coloring outside the lines. And I really like the sound of that. There's some real sort of like interest in those notes that are starting to sort of shimmy all over the place. It's really cool. The last minute-ish is just instrumental, and it's a lovely wave of sound from when he sings. It just continues riding that crest. Um, and it's quite interesting because it sounds in tone without knowing the lyrics, almost like full of a bit hopeful. But it has a sort of, joyfulness to it. I'm sure it's not intended, but it's there. And then it just this crest, this wave rides, and then it burns itself out and fades down and stops. So yeah, I thought it was really interesting actually. There's a bit of like post grungy, which is what I kind of expected, and a bit of what I guess you guys would say is emo, um, which is as we've discussed, is a broad term,
Yeah.
but on both continents. um, yes, it wasn't quite what I expected, but bits were. I particularly liked the guitars and how they played with each other. And the drummer was excellent as well and really had it all together. So yeah, it was a really pleasant surprise really, because it wasn't quite what I thought it would be. It was better, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, great, man. That's awesome to hear. I'm glad that you, especially, I don't know why this matters to me at all, but as an Englishman in an English band who has you've heard of them but not heard them, you got a chance to sit down and give them a listen, and have your expectations, I don't know if subverted is the right term, but at least exceeded, what you thought you were going to get into when you press play. So that's always good to hear. I'm really glad you liked it, man.
I would say, predominantly an American sound though to this band.
They are definitely influenced by, if I dare say, I'll let them clarify if they're ever posited the question, but I feel like they're influenced by more American bands than they are their own country's bands, which is, that's surprising to me because there is a wealth of great bands to be inspired by right in their backyard for decades preceding them. So it's at the very least, it's a bit interesting that they're pulling from so many American bands and not like your dining room table bands that are discussed, your household names, a little bit deeper than that, some bands that maybe you had not even heard of until we started doing this channel, so they're probably not that commonly
Yeah.
known over in the UK. So that, and for them to be that, we talked about this briefly, like it's really cool for me to see the niche bands of my youth becoming major influences of bands that are now breaking, whether it's over there or over here. And I think this is another instance, but that added dynamic of them being English and listening to niche American artists is almost you often see it the other way, with American bands being influenced by more niche, at least from our perspective, UK bands. So yeah, it's a little turnabout fair play or something like
Yeah,
that.
it's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, Basement are an English rock band formed in Ipswich, Suffolk, in 2009. Since their inception, the band has consisted of brothers Andrew and James Fisher on lead vocals and drums, respectively, lead guitarist Ronan Cricks, rhythm guitarist Alex Henry, and bassist Duncan Stewart. Critics have categorized Basement as alternative rock, emo, post-hardcore, and soft grunge. Basement have cited numerous bands as influences, including the Ataris, The Promise Ring, Mineral, Braid, Smoking Popes, Jets to Brazil, Tiger's Jaw, Man Overboard, Sunny Day Real Estate, Failure, Autolux, Cro-Mags, Stephen Bishop, David Bowie, Hey Mercedes, Radiohead, Jawbreaker, Lifetime, Jimmy World, and Piebald. The band were initially active between 2009 and 2012, during which time they released two studio albums, I Wish I Could Stay Here and Color Me in Kindness, all stylized as one word. The band was active again between 2014 and 2019, releasing a further two studio albums, Promise Everything in 2016 and Beside Myself in 2018. The band would sporadically reunite for one-off shows in the early 2020s before returning to an earnest cycle in 2023 following their song Covet achieving mass popularity. Their fifth studio album, Wired, is slated to release this month. They released their first full-length album, I Wish I Could Stay Here, through Run for Cover Records in 2011. The band promoted the release through through several tours, including tours of Australia and 2 American tours as well. Before the release of their sophomore album, Color Me in Kindness, the band announced a hiatus. The group revealed that the break was due to a number of personal commitments. Color Me in Kindness, the album on which this track, Breathe, features, was released in October of 2012. In mid November, the band played their final shows. Guitarist Alex Henry later revealed it was due to vocalist Andrew Fisher wishing to become a certified teacher. So, it's an interesting curveball to throw the rest of your band. This required Fisher to return to school for a period of a year and a half. Drummer James Fisher, Andrew's younger brother, was graduating from Kingston University, and the rest of the members were working on their respective careers. Henry, meanwhile, was working as a videographer in Boston, Massachusetts for Run for Cover, their label. Compared to their past releases, guitarist Alex Henry called the process for Color Me in Kindness the most chaotic process we have ever gone about writing a record. The band members would write parts for the songs and then sent them to one another over email, and they would exchange ideas on the parts. With Henry residing in the U.S., the group were unable to get together and write in a practice space, as you can imagine. With this album, the group wanted to explore new sounds and techniques. We all wanted to push the sound of the band into new places, according to Henry. The album has been described as alternative, emo, soft grunge, indie rock, post-hardcore, and punk rock. The recording for Color Me in Kindness took place at the Panda Studios in Fremont, California, with producer Sam Pura in July. According to Henry, the group were forced to work as hard as they could, given limited time in the studio. During the first day in the studio, the band were awake until 4 a.m., putting the parts together for songs and pretty much writing songs from scratch, according to the band. Henry saw this as providing a fresh approach to writing the album. Pura understood the band's sonic vision and provided a lot of ideas as well, and coached them to explore new techniques in layering and texturizing the sound of the album. Color Me in Kindness peaked at number 188 on the Billboard 200, as well as reaching the number 1 on that coveted vinyl albums chart and number 8 on the Heat Seekers album chart here in the United States, and it also peaked at number 48 on the independent albums chart. Despite the lack of press coverage or live dates to support it, the album has since sold over 25,000 copies worldwide. Absolute Punk, Kill Your Stereo, and Dead Press each rated the album a 90%, while AllMusic scored it a 4 out of 5 stars, and punknews.org and Alter the Press each scored the album a perfect 5 out of 5. In a short review for AllMusic, Matt Collar wrote that the album showcases Basement's passionate, sprawling, emo-influenced rock. James Tremaine of Alter the Press wrote that the album owed as much to mid-90s emo and grunge acts such as Nirvana as it did to modern-day punk. He went on to further say that the band constructed an album that knows both when to swing its punches and when to offer a shoulder to cry on, being equal parts brute force and beauty. Kill Your Stereo wrote that one of the group's most appealing traits was the honesty and sincerity in Fisher's lyrics, and compared Fisher's voice to that of Sunny Day Real Estate frontman Jeremy Enig. Punknews.org called the album incredible, a near flawless record, and praised Fisher's vocals, referring to them as top-notch and remarkable. So, speaking of those lyrics, let's jump into them. Smile like it was yesterday. Make me believe that you're the same. Speak, tell me that you're okay. I'll keep biting my tongue. I'm looking at your face, as if we never made mistakes. Breathe, take in everything. Become a person that I hate. I am looking at your face, as if we never even made mistakes. If I close my eyes for long enough, Would I die or would I just get lost? You could find me if you cared enough, but I'm hoping you don't. I close my eyes for long enough. Would I die? I cannot pretend I haven't tried. I am hoping that you don't find me. Absolute punk contributor Adam Flighter wrote of the album, when listening to Basement's Color Me in Kindness, there are just as many references to indie, grunge, and alternative shoegaze as there are allusions to radio's top 40 at its height in 1996. A scientific fact not to be discredited. The album should spawn a balance and composure co-headline aptly titled I Love the 90s. The tracks not only flow well, but each song builds another reference note to the thesis from the Enig croon on Covet to the You'd Prefer an Astronaut inspired intro and opening verse on the closing Wish. As much as the closer pulls from the space rock, it shifts into a chorus made for the days of youthful angst. At its strongest core, there's a confidence that's glazed across each track. The angry attack of riffs on Spoiled against the striking snare kills contemporary radio rock, and the heart racing brace of Control is one of the best examples of the shift in the album's dialogue. The record's ballad, Breathe, is tucked perfectly mid album to calm some of the adrenaline between side A and side B. So, there you have it, John. Just realized I am wearing a You'd Prefer an Astronaut t-shirt as I was halfway through that quote, but which
The old
probably,
zebra.
yeah, the old zebra indeed. And that probably speaks to why this band resonated with me when I listened to it at first. But there's so much more than just like shades of hum in there. I mean, I think you hear some of the Sunny Day Real Estate stuff, even some of the Failure stuff, and even some of that post grunge that you kind of alluded to, and it was mentioned here as well. So yeah, it's good stuff. I'm really glad you liked it, man.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, I can see how they would definitely, I would say, find the sulfur market in the US.
Yeah, for sure. I could see how they would have, and it sounds, I mean, they're recording over here, they're signed to a label from over here. They've done more than a handful of tours in the United States. So yeah, they definitely have room over here to grow and be loved, that's for sure. So,
Unless they get
perhaps
deported.
yeah, exactly. Oh, Dios mío. Something tells me they don't look like the group that's getting thrown out of the country, though. So they have that going for them. There's something about
Welcome. If you're a white South African, welcome.
yes, exactly. Oh my God, get me the fuck out of here. Get me off this ride. But yeah, with the new album like literally on the horizon, as it sounds like, I'll be anxious to give that a look and a listen and see how it is, and maybe pull from it, or they definitely have a few other albums besides just Color Me in Kindness that we can draw from. So, given that this went over as well as it did with you, I look forward to checking out more of them on this channel with you. And guys out there in the listening audience, if you are a fan of Basement and there are other tracks by them that you would like us to check out, probably John, feel free to drop them down in the comments field below, and we will add them to our ever-growing list for future Friday episodes. Also, just let us know your thoughts in general. If this resonated with you, if it didn't, it's fine. It's whatever. Also, please like, share, and or subscribe if you haven't done any or all of those things. It goes a long way to help us here at the channel. It only costs you a couple seconds, but it means the world to us. So thank you so much in advance. And hopefully, John and I will catch all y'all in growing numbers on the next installment of the Audiophiles. We'll see you later, guys.